Ah yes, the Dragon Rulers. Released in Lord of the Tachyon Galaxy, these babies and daddies saw back-to-back releases in both their initial core set and a side set in the collector tins, coming in a beautiful secret rare. But was their performance in the TCG as good as their artwork? Today, we ask ourselves, how good were the Dragon Rulers actually?
And in this video, we'll be going over these competitive wait, this isn't Pokemon.
Alright, let's just make it clear. The Dragon Rulers were absolutely broken straight out of the gate. So broken in fact that if we took the time to go over every single list using the Dragon Rulers and every top that they had, we'd be here until I'm unbanned. So we're going to talk exclusively about ruler-centric builds and only their first place finishes, with other weirder builds sprinkled in if they topped for the majority of the video. So, what made the rulers so powerful? Well, they all had 3 unique effects, only one of which could be used per turn. If they were in the hand or graveyard, you could banish 2 dragons or respective types from your hand or graveyard to summon said ruler, meaning that you could say banish 2 other rulers or 2 fires to summon Blaster. The second effect was a unique discard effect. By discarding itself and a respective attribute, you could apply a unique effect. Blaster was a targeted pop, Tidal was a Foolish Burial, Tempest was a Stratos for any dragon, and Redox was a Monster Reborn. Finally, they even had an effect when banished, allowing you to add a monster with the respective type and attribute from your deck to your hand, allowing for synergies with cards like Gold Sarcophagus. For example, you could banish Tidal off of Gold Sark and Tidal would search you any water dragon from your deck to your hand. Their only quote-unquote downside outside of their only once per turns was the fact that if they were special summoned, during the opponent's end phase, they would return themselves back to the hand, but this was arguably a good thing at times, being that it allowed you to repeatedly cycle their effects in simplified game states and allowed for insane follow-up plays. To make things even crazier, they even had support in the baby dragons, smaller forms of the daddies where they could discard themselves and either a dragon or respective attribute to summon their corresponding daddies from the deck. Although the monster they summoned couldn't attack that turn, this was still an amazing outlet for the rulers to get more dragons into rotation and gain massive consistency to an already very reliable deck. Alright, you've got a ton of level 7 dragons. What exactly are you going to do with them? Well, you are typically going to spam that extra deck like there was no tomorrow. The rank 7 pool at this period of time was especially deadly since not a ton of clean in-engine outs existed for many of these cards. Mecha Phantom Beast Dracosack was the primary rank 7 of choice when going first, with rulers being able to easily go into 1 or even 2 on occasion on the very first turn, able to summon 2 tokens and subsequently wall up from both battle and card destruction. Additionally, it can also be used to punish a slow open and threaten a massive lethal push by tributing said tokens to pop a card on the board and to get in with big plane beatdown. Next was the Board Breaker of Nightmares, number 11 Big Eye. Being a non-hard once per turn snatch steal, easily accessible in the extra deck was absolutely killer for any board that was unprepared to have their own monsters turned against them. And even if they couldn't kill, they still kept your monster and could utilize its effects as if it were their own. What made this card even more insane was the fact that it could actually out other Dracosacks and even steal other Big Eyes to steal back whatever the opponent had just taken. And third was the dark horse of the extra deck, the Synchro 8 Crimson Blader. If this card ever resolved in the mirror, it was absolutely lights out for the opponent, as its floodgate effect completely turned off any attempt to assemble a board on the opponent's side of the field, and was easily summonable with any ruler plus a level 1 tuner, such as Effect Veiler or the searchable Flame Veil Guard. There were a ton of additional niche monsters that we could go into. Pearl to beat over Ophions, Synchro 7s made off of Mecha Phantom Beast tokens, but this is just the tip of the iceberg for what made the rulers so incredibly powerful. Amazing main deck monsters, amazing extra deck options, and the ability to incur massive resource swings. This deck truly had it all. Speaking of resource swings, the rulers had some of the best resource accumulation ever seen in the history of this game, thanks to cards such as Gold Sarcophagus, Sacred Sword of 7 stars, and most deadly of all, Super Rejuvenation, which was easily able to draw upwards of 6 to 8 cards during the end phase, and wasn't even a once per turn, meaning that you could activate another copy if you found one off of the first. The ruler's power and consistency were so incredible that the only reliable way to shut them down outside of the mirror were to play floodgates, and only 2 decks in the format were capable of doing so consistently. First up was Spellbooks. Thanks to Spellbook of Judgment's release alongside the rulers, which was basically just Super Rejuvenation 2, they were able to match the ruler's advantage swings with their own and do their best to lock out opponents by summoning a Jowgen the Spiritualist from the deck during the end phase, a Vanity's Emptiness on legs. Next was Evil Swarm. By utilizing any two L-Swarm monsters, such as through Unexpected Die or Rescue Rabbit, grabbing Heliotropes from deck, or double summons found in Kirkion and Castor, you could pump out an Evil Swarm Ophion, which, while it had Xyz material, prevented the special summon of level 5 or higher monsters and could search spell and trap protection for itself in the form of Infestation Pandemic. Another point of contention came in the form of the Constellars. Their specific extra deck removal options in M7 and Pleiades matched up very favorably against the type of protection cards like Dracosac had, and were able to snatch games and even event wins from the rulers. Unfortunately, the problem with these decks was that they often folded in games 2 and 3 thanks to targeted hate for these problematic matchups. Spell Canceller and Eradicator Epidemic Virus shut down spellbooks on the play, and Tsukiyomi and Puppet Plant were great for getting rid of Jaugen on the draw. At times, rulers could just natively out Ophion with Blaster if the opponent didn't say sack a Forbidden Dress, and many of the cards that ruler played for spellbooks, most specifically the aforementioned Tsukiyomi, also dealt with whatever boards Evil Swarm tried to put up. As a result, ruler teched its main deck for the mirror, being that it was the most dangerous and likely matchup, with side decks being populated with Seki instant win cards. Unfortunately, no matter how hard you tried to cope, Spellbook lost more games than not to the sideboard, and Evil Swarm was just an ultimately worse spellbook that was played primarily due to its extremely low price tag relative to the $1,000+ decks of ruler and spellbook. So, what were the results? Well, as we mentioned earlier, rulers and its plethora of variants won tons of events, so we're just going to speedrun these and their first place victories. Again, if I mispronounce your names, I am so very sorry. Alien Lai won the French Nationals, Stefano Lenti won the Italian Nationals, Kovacic won the Croatian Nationals, Chris Matsky won the Oceanic Nationals, Rodrigo Torres won the Spanish Nationals, and Patrick Hoban won the North American Nationals. Additionally, Leonard Sanchez and Przemysław Strzelka would win the Mexican and Polish National Championship respectively with Light and Darkness Dragon Rulers, which was a build more focused around the searchable Light and Darkness Dragon and the much less searchable but just as sacky Arc Lord Christia. However, this domination would not go unnoticed by Konami, at least not until literally 2 days after the release of the 2013 Collector Tins, which featured the Dragon Rulers, in which the largest ban list of all time would be put into effect, the September 2013 ban list. A ton of archetypes saw hits, but the Rulers were definitely prime suspects. First off, every single baby dragon was now banned, severely limiting the deck's consistency in being able to find the daddies. Secondly was Super Rejuvenation, which was the deck's favorite way to sculpt their hand in graveyard in the end phase, with sometimes with up to 20 fresh cards. Gold Sarcophagus was now limited, another consistency hit to the rulers, and finally, Eradicator Epidemic Virus, a side deck card that was played as a blowout against spellbooks that could be triggered off of the tributing of a Big Eye, was now limited. With Dragon Ruler's consistency taking a massive tumble, the deck immediately faded into obscurity, taken over by the plague of Evil Swarms, Mermail, Firefist, and other previously mentioned rogue decks now finally having their chance to shine, is what I would say if things actually panned out this way. Unfortunately, because the rulers were still all at 3, the deck's core game plan of summon big beaters and dumbasses from the extra deck still worked just as fine, just a bit less consistently. As a result, a ton of new ruler variants began to sprout, and we're just gonna have to talk about all of them. But first, we've got to talk about one of the best trap cards ever printed in Yu-Gi-Oh's history, 6th Sense. 6th Sense was originally an OCG promo released all the way back in 2004. What does it do? You would roll a die and declare 2 numbers from 1 to 6, and if the result was one of those numbers, you would draw that amount of cards, otherwise you'd mill equal to the die's result. This card, even by 2022 standards, is pretty damn good. Being able to potentially draw 5 or 6 cards or to mill in a deck that could be built to benefit off of those mills, such as an Eldritch or Paleo Frogs, could be absolutely incredible. And even in 2004 Playground Land, just the potential to draw 5 to 6 cards for a non-existent downside was absolutely game-winning. Which is why just before its TCG released, it was limited just as a precaution and banned in 2005, just because, I mean, come on, it's 6th Sense. For years it rotted on the Forbidden and Limited list, waiting for an import to never come. Fast forward 8 years and picture this. You're a product design lead for Legendary Collection 4 Joey's World, set to release in October of 2013, and it is, for the most part, one of the worst sets of all time from a competitive standpoint due to most of its cards being terrible vanilla monsters, reprints of banned cards, or reprints of cards that had literally gotten a structure deck from just a couple months ago. Faced with the fear of creating an unsellable set, you think to yourself, hey, Joey used to use all sort of gamble cards, and we're importing a ton of OCG cards in this set. What if we brought in an OCG dice card? And so, the finger on the monkey's paw curled, and on October 11th, 2013, the official ban list was updated, and alongside the release of Legendary Collection 4 Joey's World was a ban list update with one singular change. 6th Sense was now limited. As soon as 6th Sense was released, as a comment no less, ruler players made immediate use of this card. Players were already experimenting with mill options to get more dragons into the grave, such as with Pokey Drago, so a card that was actually good was something every duelist was fiending over to replicate the resource swings of Super Rejuvenation. And thus, the Dragon Ruler Renaissance has begun, with these variants taking the forefront in the competitive scene. First up were Dragoonity Rulers, piloted to a first place finish by Patrick Hoban at the ARG circuit in Fort Worth. The Dragoonities and Dragon Ravine provided for even more explosive plays and slight consistency boosting with the Synchro half of the extra deck, able to go into cards such as Vardriana and Gay Durg as beatdown or setup options, as well as using their level 6 bodies to go into Hieratic Dragon King of Atum, which could grab any dragon out of the deck, including the rulers. Next were the Hieratic Rulers. This variant was similar to Dragoonity's idea of using level 6 bodies to access Atum to bring out the rulers, but instead of relying on synchros, they utilized the Hieratics instead, able to easily tap into the rank 5 and 6 XE's pool. Sean Medina would place top 8 at the Anaheim Regionals with this list. Then there were Lightsworn Plant Rulers, piloted by Jordan Winters to a top 8 finish at YCS Toronto. Being able to utilize Lightsworn cards as well as plant synchro cards such as Debris Dragon, as well as using said mill options like Card Trooper to find the rulers, turned out to be a pretty overall good enough shell to slot the rulers in. But then there's also Blue Eyes Ruler. Yes, you heard that right. The Blue Eyes monsters and cards such as Card of Connaissance had just enough synergy to be played alongside the rulers, allowing for easier synchro and rank 8 lines due to the White Stone of Legend and the legendary Blue Eyes White Dragon respectively. Sam Jones would take this deck to a top 8 finish at the Kissimmee Regionals. And now I bring you to Assault Ruler, probably because this deck is an assault on my senses. This deck focused on making Stardust Dragon Assault mode by digging through the deck with the inclusion of a ton of draw spells, such as the previously mentioned Swords and Connaissance, but also now triple Upstart Goblin. Additionally, alongside Plant Rulers, Trigon began to pick up popularity as a target for Debris Dragon, which could be dumped off a ravine or title, summoned back, and used to make Ancient Fairy Dragon and search another Dragon Ravine. And finally, with the release of Shadow Specters came Mythic Rulers, which utilize the Mythic Dragons to special themselves for free and modulate their levels to facilitate a rank 8 package, going to cards such as Divine Dragon Knight Felgrand and Hieratic Sun Dragon Overlord of the Heliopolis. Conrad Grunwald would place second at YCS Turin with this variant. Well, what about Pure Rulers? Were those still out of the question? Absolutely fucking not. In fact, Pure Rulers saw the most overall representation by a mile in comparison to its variants. Edward Kwong won YCS Toronto, Merlin Schumacher won YCS San Mateo, and Alpay Engine won YCS London. Again, there are so many second place and below finishes that to list them all would literally take us all day. Dragon Rulers from their release until the end of 2013 were absolutely dominant in every aspect and solidified themselves as one of Yu-Gi-Oh's truly tier 0 threats. Unfortunately, Konami had new product to sell, and with that, Rulers took another massive hit on the January 2014 ban list. First of all, every single daddy had been put to 1, absolutely slaughtering the deck's consistency. Additionally, supplementary supporting cards such as 6th Sense, Return from the Different Dimension, and Dragon Ravine were now banned. And to hammer the final nail in the coffin, Debris Dragon and Sacred Sword of 7 stars were now limited. Their consistency had been slaughtered yet again, and any and all tangential support was put onto the chopping block as well. But if there's anything you should know about dragons in fiction, is that these motherfuckers just keep coming back. And that's exactly what happened. For the first part of the year, the dragon rulers weren't anything too special. Without any real glue to bind them together, they were at best splashed in other decks that shared their attributes, such as Blaster and Fire Fist, or Tidal and Mermail. However, some people still decided that they still wanted to play Dragon Ruler good stuff, and at YCS Vegas, Elvis Vu would place top 8 with Blue Eyes Mythic Ruler, and Denny Yu would win the event with Hieratic Rulers. But like manna from heaven, everything would change with the release of a little card known as Soul Charge. This card was the stuff of nightmares. You could target any number of monsters in your graveyard and special summon them with the cost of 1,000 life points per monster, as well as you not being able to conduct your battle phase that turn. This card was, and is, absolutely bonkers. Being able to end on a 3rd or even 4th Xyz monster while on the play was absolutely wild and able to close out games on turn 1, and the rulers would dominate once again. The variant that would see the most success overall would be Lightsworn Rulers, cutting out the plant cards previously associated with it. Who would have guessed that the deck that sends cards to the graveyard would utilize Soul Charge the best? Samir Boadid made top 4 of Brazilian Nats, Barcel Burry placed 2nd at the European WCQ, Noah Sharp would win the Minnesota State Championship, Noah Richards would win the Oregon State Championship, and Stephen Bryan would place 2nd at the Connecticut State Championship, all playing Lightsworn Rulers and splashing in the 4 big daddies to summon off of Soul Charge. Despite this gift, the deck would fall to something not named a Banlist this time. Instead, it was a new set by the name of Duelist Alliance. This set introduced
Pendulum Monsters, Artifact Lancia, Satellar Knight Deneb, El Shaddai Winda, Dante, Traveler of the Burning Abyss.
Because of the influx of power creep as well as the numerous hits it had suffered on the ban list, the deck immediately fell from mainstream play and was delegated to, at best, state championships and regional placements, with minor placements of course here and there. Imagine being on top of the world, soaring through the skies, to be shot down by Dante milling 3. And for the most part, that's where Dragon Rulers were delegated to, a Saki one-off combo deck that unfortunately didn't see tons of representation. Fortunately, in March of 2013, the deck finally received a piece of support, albeit from an unlikely source. On March 20th of 2013, number 95 Galaxy Eyes Dark Matter Dragon was released, and it was everything the Rulers were asking for. By using a rank 8 Galaxy Eyes monster as the material for it instead of 3 level 9s, you could, as a cost, send 3 dragons from your deck to the graveyard to make your opponent banish 3 monsters from their deck. It could have literally just stopped at the cost and this card still would have been broken. By turboing out level 8s with cards like Beast King Barbaros, the Mythic Dragons, the Blue Eyes package, and even Mausoleum of the Emperor to normal summon a level 8 in a pinch, you could summon the materials needed for any rank 8 Galaxy Eyes dragon, rank up into Dark Matter, send your rulers, and be absolutely off to the races, summoning Draco Sacks and Felgrands alike, comboing your opponent into infinity. This deck was absolutely killer for a whole 2 weeks before Konami released the April 2015 ban list, which banned the Daddy Dragon Rulers once and for all, and it is here where the Dragon Ruler story finally comes to a definite end. It just shows to go that you really can't give Dragon Rulers an inch, or else they'll take a mile. And for the most part, this is where the Dragon Ruler saga ended. Fortunately, on the July 2019 ban list, Tempest was brought back to 1. Despite this, keen-eye duelists would realize that this card being brought back meant that this card is actually much worse now. In fact, even during a Dragon Link-centric metagame, duelists just didn't even bother with the card for the most part, being that it was too difficult to set up and it was just a worse extender than something like Quick Launch. Overall, the Dragon Rulers at such a low quantity of 1, and with the rank 7 pool no longer being what it used to be, ends their tale slain at the hands of the sword that is multiple ban lists and being power crept into oblivion. Yikes. And that's it. So how good were the Dragon Rulers actually? They were amazing. The fact that half of this script was just building up to what they could do is a testament to how incredibly busted they were. I mean, Konami literally had to slaughter them 3 times and introduce 2 summoning mechanics to keep them down. Without a doubt, the Rulers remained an integral part in shaping Yu-Gi-Oh's metagame and pacing forever. Thanks for watching, everyone. Special thanks to Kellen and everyone from False White Gaming for the cameo, and thanks to the editors and researchers seen on the screen here. If you want to see more content like this, hit the subscribe button, and if you want to help support the channel directly, consider joining the Patreon for early access and a bunch of cool behind the scenes. Tell me in the comment section down below if you think the rulers could come back in 2022, and that's about it. See you next time.